Hello, what is up, everyone? Once again, I am here to shed some light on one storyline, basically of super elaborate fan fiction, Chrono Trigger 2. That being said, what was I gonna do? There's something we should do here. All right, if I don't know what to do, I'll just press this button. Oh yeah. Oh, let's talk about the title of this episode. The title is Chrono Break, a timeline of possibilities. And then actually we have a super important distinction to make. By the way, this is one potential box idea, but it could also look like, you know, something akin to this. It's all about box art, baby. But anyway, what I wanted to bring up was this. That is the theme of the day. Oops. Oh, perfect. Can we pause that? Pause, please. A character of its own. So that is actually the break, which is the overworld. The overworld is a massive character. And as it so happens, I do have a brand new fresh set of notes that I'm trying to review related to such a thing. And so we will go right over to here and look at some of this stuff. All right. We need to identify key pieces. I think we got it. Excuse me while I think if we cover all these notes today, then we are golden. So that is our plan. Where we are talking about the break, the overworld. A patchwork quilt of time zones, pause. So you can see here that on this particular map, you've got this shaded region, which is like, who knows what that is? It's a shadow, and you can move through it. You see the road it goes through. But over here you have Luca and Robo, who are appearing at an earlier date, like when they were involved in a different timeline or different events that happened in the same overworld, but previous. So it's like those guys are potentially there also, and you could interact with them. This is all super duper experimental right now, but something like that. And then you got like the whole overworld itself would kind of be a reflection of the floating islands, except for it's like the whole thing. It's like the whole Earth is actually one plane of a floating island of essentially Zurvan, which is mentioned at the end of Chrono Cross. And I looked up what Zurvan is, and let's see what it says. All right, pause. In Egyptian mythology, hold on, I'll read it off with the pointer. In Egyptian mythology, the Nu is the deification of the primordial abyss. All right. Nu is often depicted as a vast expanse of water stretching out to infinity. And we also got this from Radical Dreamers or something. It's somewhere in the canon. I think it's probably Radical Dreamers, but there's this, which is like the closest we're going to get, I think. So this is pretty much Zurvan. Theoretically. It's just a theory. Hold on, let me just go back here and make sure that I include the fact that this is just a theory. But this could be Zurvan. Which I think is from Radical Dreamers. But this says new, right? This is like the Egyptians, what they think of as new. So it's not, it doesn't say anything about Zurvan yet. I don't even know why I'm talking about Zurvan when this is saying new. Hold on, I'm sure I have a point here. It embodies the chaotic waters that predated the universe. Okay, so what I'm saying is that Wikipedia says that new in the Egyptian stuff basically sounds like how they describe Zurvan at the end of Chrono Cross. When Shala offhandedly mentions it in her letter, something about when we're all playing out the curtain of Zurvan. I don't know. I don't know what the heck Zurvan is, but I do know that maybe some people that we know might be residents of such a plane. Okay, so that is unofficial. That's definitely not happening. But this is some sweet imaginings by... Hold on, let's go back. Nama did this video, which imagine if you just had some regular old gameplay, you know, that looked similar to this, but except for it's Nama style with all this crazy cinematic tech stuff happening. So that's one way that you could take 16-bit old day style and transform it into something. I mean, if we harnessed all of the power of modern gaming into you know, 16 bits, we could get Nama style excellence nonstop. And this actually is not Nama, this is Doggy Treat. He's responsible for the beat 'em up style. Oh, he's responsible for this. But this is actually, this one is Cyber, I think it's Cyber X made this game that you can actually play, and I got it from the YouTube channel, The Gaming Scription, where they sat down and played it. But I mean, this is like so badass. And imagine if you had, let me just keep this going for a minute. Okay. Imagine if you had the menus for Chrono Trigger popping up while this kind of stuff was happening. And like there's 8 people on the screen, but oh no, let's say in this case there's 4 people on the screen. So, you know, Ayla is your, whoops, she's kind of like your guest right now. You're not controlling her because of, you know, what started out as limitations in gameplay for the Super Nintendo now becomes a rule that we use to kind of define the story and define gameplay mechanics going forward, but tweaked to be, you know, more practical. Like, yeah, why wouldn't you be able to bring 4 people all the time? But we're going to keep it like old school and new school by doing something like this, where for every arbiter, you can have 3 people that you can control. Because like while that is happening, oh my bad. while that is happening, you also have so here's your arbiter, you know. It's based on like a lot of different things on how you would become an arbiter, but we're going with the two major reasons are, for instance, the classic one, obviously, with Surge and you have arbiter status that we believe may be achieved through contact with the frozen flame. That's one potential way that arbiter status could happen. And then this one seems confusing to me now, but I feel like I read it somewhere. I really do, and I liked it. But it's like because Marl went to the darkness beyond time, she's somehow an arbiter also. And then that also would have happened to Atropos because Atropos spent some time in like a reality that got avoided or something. I don't know. This is from an old article I read, but I ran with it, and I'd have to actually do the research and find out why that's like that. But we're going with your arbiters are essentially some key characters at first, and then like if you have the frozen flame equipped on a character for like a certain amount of battles, then
So in the Metroid series, the Morph Ball is a staple ever since the first game. But interesting enough, it was originally not supposed to be a part of the game. The idea was initially that Samus would crawl through tight spaces, but because of technical limitations of the time, the developers were unable to program this, so a simpler concept was conceived. Just transform her into a ball. Well, that works. It's cool how this one little problem that the developers encountered turned into one of the things that the character is known for.
here's what I've been wanting to do for a long time. This is all of the credits. So all of the artwork, everything that I used, like for instance earlier you saw Nama, all of the Chrono Trigger credits. Let's see. Do you like this? I'm going to put Simon S. Andersen up there twice for a minute because he was like the guy who made the Chrono Break trailer that got the storyline going on this. Alright, I'll spread these out. And in the meantime, maybe there's like something we could watch while I do this. Oh yeah, this is about the break.
After Pico rooted himself in the darkness beyond time, his plan was complete. He had escaped the danger of existing on a malleable timeline. The only way to attack him now was a head-on assault in the dark.
Oopsies, I'm gonna have to show this on a different channel. Hold on.
After Pico rooted himself in the darkness beyond time, his plan was complete. He had escaped the danger of existing on a malleable timeline. The only way to attack him now was a head-on assault in the darkness beyond time. Now, at the very least, he would be able to see any threat approaching and would be able to deal with it directly. Though he's a dangerous practitioner of Lavos-style magic, Pico isn't physically as strong as a normal Lavos. Remember, he was damaged by the battle in 65 million BC. But with Super Saiyan Janus by his side, at his right hand, Pico is right in believing that there exists nary a foe with the means to defeat them. In Pico's mind, he's already won. He's escaped the threat of persecution and is now able to monitor the various space-time continua from his position of safety in the darkness beyond time. As for what happened next, that was an interesting development to say the least. Pico didn't see it coming, nor did he move to stop it. You see, his postnatal contact with Luca and Azala imprinted on him a scientific curiosity, and Fate's actions after he left for the darkness beyond time were truly fascinating to him. You see, after Pico escaped the timeline, Fate was left only with her desire for evolution and improvement. She was now upgraded far beyond her original design in Chrono Cross, with a decentralized mainframe augmented by Dreamstone and unlimited access to the Frozen Flame. Pico had promised Fate evolution for her cooperation with his plan, and the promise was fulfilled. Fate did evolve, but she would evolve further still and become the ultimate weapon which the Xelians foresaw. Don't forget, having established an unlimited connection to the Frozen Flame, this is a much stronger version of Fate than we've ever seen. This time, she does not divide the Dragon God and seal the individual plasma beings in slumber, but enslaves the one Dragon God. Now she has a tool to control the forces of the planet. With the Dragon God integrated into her avatar, Fate rises to a new level of power. This new creature, the combination of Fate and the Dragon God, was known as the Vision Serpent. With such a huge boost to her power, Fate has new means to continue her mission to extend her control and influence throughout timeline and dimensions. The Vision Serpent begins systematic time crashes, tactfully collapsing distant time coordinates into antiquity over and over, repeatedly entwining two time periods in the same space, and terraforming the land to accommodate the new era. After each crash, she infiltrates the new time zone to install records, increasing her control and minimizing variance in the new space-time. With her supercomputational power and unchecked transdimensional abilities of the Frozen Flame, the Vision Serpent folds the web of space-time on itself again and again. Her ultimate goal is to crash everything into antiquity, literally break time, and then rule over it. And so, the technologically advanced Kingdom of Zeal becomes an ever-growing nexus of repeatedly collapsed critical zones of time-space. By the time our real story begins, the place once known as Antiquity is now called the Break.
Yep, so that's... Dude, I was at peak fan fiction time when I wrote that back in the day. So funny. Listening to myself now, I feel like the biggest nerd, but it's so funny to me. But she would evolve once more. Three-part series on the channel, guys. Don't be shy. 3 hours long. I wrote a whole thing The whole in between what would happen in Chrono Trigger and this game. This game is not what's outlined in that 3-hour video. That's the prequel to this game. Theoretical game. There's definitely some duplicates in here. This one in particular, Ryan Beardy, I wanted to mention because he had like such an interesting idea about spacing mechanics. Let's see. Here it is.
Proximity attacks are such an interesting addition to turn-based combat. We have moves that hit enemies close to one another, hit enemies in a straight line, or hit enemies close to the player. Adding attacks that manipulate player or enemy movement would add a fun layer of strategy, strengthened by the fact that each battle's in a unique location. Having the player or enemies interact with the environment would also be cool to see. Imagine seeing a visual indication of an enemy attack, and using Chrono's Sword Strike to attack through another enemy in order to move him out of the way, or use Isla's Strength to push an enemy into lava, or using one of Luca's many gadgets to cause an earthquake or avalanche that drops rocks on an enemy location. Giving enemies the same kind of tools could further deepen or strategize even the most basic enemy encounters.
So, spacing mechanics. You know, Chrono Trigger always had that little extra edge where it was also about the where the enemies were located on the screen. And so what Ryan is suggesting there is just to lean into that and have environmental interaction with the spacing and everything, and you know, having Ayla push a person into a lava pit or being pushed into a lava pit is just part of what would make... Oh yeah, I forgot, we still have all those notes that we're supposed to cover today. Is part of
After
what
Pico rooted himself in the darkness beyond time, his plan...
My bust. What were those notes anyway? Let's take a look. I don't want to get off track. I think I can power through and cover them all, but I just can't get off track too much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm always trying to check on the chat and see what's up. Okay, what were we doing there? Let's clear off what we got. Looks like this. Oh, here it is. This is what we wanted. Oh yeah, this was about Zurvan. I forgot. I got sidetracked way back when we were talking about Zurvan even. We'll be back to Zurvan. We're not done with that. That's for sure. Okay, but the overworld. A character of its own. Procedurally generated. Geographically different every time. So imagine that you learn how to navigate a map based on story beats and not location. So like the same plot points happen, but it's not always in the same place or the same way, because now we could do thematically constant, procedurally generated maps. Hopefully I'll clear up what the heck I mean by that in a minute, because I have an idea right now, but I want more details. Each section of the break is the result of a different time-space crashed into Zeal by the Vision Serpent. This all happened before the game. Like, you basically get there and defeat the Vision Serpent. So this is when the break stops being formed, the moment that you defeat her. You may recognize the region's native time-space by the kinds of enemies that spawn and the music that plays on approach. So you're walking through, you know, the random overworld, and then you hear Secret of the Forest bust out. And you're like, oh heck yeah. You know that you're close to a Middle Ages time space. And so you'll see the same sort of enemies that appear in the Middle Ages start to appear in your overworld. Just an idea for that one. Oh, that's the chat. I don't want to mess with the chat. Okay, what's next? Oh, this is a big one. Excuse me. So up until this point, it's been like there's records of fate in the Princess Nadia prelude. There's records of fate there, and when you touch one, the Bound Watchman might come attack you. So it's a risk reward. Do you want a chance saving, or do you want and maybe have to face him, or which is a tough battle but nets good experience, or do you want to just keep running and not save on the records? Okay, but because fate is active and the records are active. Because Fate is the Vision Serpent, and you have not yet defeated her. But once you get to the break, the game style changes, and it's now like in a Harvest Moon / Animal Crossing style, where like you turn the console off and it's always right where you left it, kind of thing. I think actually in those games it progresses. I don't know if this one will have to progress while you were gone, but it's definitely no saving. Whatever you do is going to be, it's constantly being saved every single moment. And that's why it leans into the themes of the mutability of time and fragility of condition. And it's based on Masato Kato's original speculation that we should leave the past behind. Not quite Star Wars style, kill it if you must. I mean, I think that's a bit overkill. Or, I don't know, I refuse to comment on that. I'll take it back. But, like, we are leaning into... The main game already happened. You'll never beat Chrono Trigger, so this is just a follow-up where however you end the game, it's kind of like nothing is canon. After the first game, nothing is canon. What other kind of note could I slide in that empty space there? Maybe there's another one that relates to this. Hopefully. Oh yeah, perfect. Living style or traditional style. So this would be called living style when you defeat the Vision Serpent and get to the break. However, you can return to traditional style with the Records of Fate if you participate in Story Gate number 2, the Warring Dyad. And if you facilitate Fate's victory in the Warring Dyad. If she wins that battle, then the records will activate again in the break, and you can return to like traditional save state. I think that's going to be the future of gaming, is just altering the conditions of your game through story beats. Oh, and this brings me to one thing that I want to mention. I am so behind the times and so sorry for the fact that Square Enix already did a lot of this stuff as far as the combat goes with another game, a little thing you might have heard of called, hold on, I got a graphic for it. I'll just search for it, okay? Apparently in Star Ocean, there's like all of this exact kind of stuff where you have like the people running around and they're auto-quested. This is like really frenetic, I think, but this graphic style is totally, I mean, I don't know what to say. This is just it. This is like the jam. you know? But Star Ocean pretty much did this already. Just so we're all clear on that. A lot of the mechanics about auto... I just said this. I don't want to repeat myself, but basically what I started hearing about Star Ocean, and I thought, dude, all right, I am way behind. So anyway, if you've played that, imagine that's what this version of Chrono Break would also be like. Oh, that brings me to the biggest point. The whole point of the show was Chrono Break versus Chrono Break. And I would propose that the game actually be called Chrono Break, because that goes with the theme of, like, Luca eventually tells, once you realize that, nothing is canon, and that nothing, however you play it out is just really up to you, and it's all just another reality that's coming to pass. Then suddenly you realize that the journey is everything. And that's why I feel like the theme, and the reason why it would have to be called Chrono Break like this, is because it's like nothing is ever greater than just adventuring with your friends in the present moment, and, building your party and maintaining your base. So, like, if she had to invent, and that's part of Luca's character arc, is coming to grips with the fact that, she did her best, and sometimes the journey is everything. Anyway, her finest invention would actually be something that could slow down time during those good times. And she would call it like a chrono break, She's slowing it down during the precious memories, brother. So that's why I would say that it's definitely got to be called Chrono Break, because, like, Luca at one point hypothesizes that the greatest invention of all, which is impossible, would be something that would just harness and treasure the good times while you're going through the motherfucking landscape, just annihilating bad guys left, right, and center. Being totally freaking sweet. Okay, I just want to go back real quick to this part where it says acts and reacts to player actions. Specific examples of that would include, for instance, let's say that, like, this part of the map is hold on. It's like because time is all blended together, you have different parts of the map representing different times of the same timeline. So if you did something on one part of the map, it might, you know how in the first game, things that you do in the past affect the future, but in this, it's the same here, but you're essentially just making different parts of the map on the same plane into what's being affected. So if you do something great in an earlier part of the map, then other parts of the map will also benefit and blossom from your amazingness. So this is to represent how if you just use a bunch of cavemen that are Ayla's friends to fill in the character gaps, you don't have to go the expensive route that Chrono Cross did by having so many different character stories. You essentially just have a bunch of moldable soldiers like in Final Fantasy Tactics. And there's a good story reason, which is that they're all of the tribe that Ayla ran away to Gaia's navel with when Dalton came back and started just wrecking prehistory really bad. So these are grinding locations. Could be a couple grinding locations. That's kind of, you know, when you have no end game, all you have is grinding locations. I'm going to leave that one a mystery for now. Oh, we've seen this one quite a bit. I think I just showed it. I'm trying to find... Oh, this is a good example of what I wanted to show before. You know, you have... Imagine if the edge of the overworld was actually... This doesn't really show it so good, but... If it was actually the ocean of Zurvan on the end of... And the jury's out on whether or not it's an enterable area. I don't know. I think this is where it starts to get out of hand. You know, you don't want to make up too much extra stuff. But I think that the edge of the map being an infinite ocean would be very thematically on point. So the time zones that Fate would have crashed into her version of Antiquity to create the overworld called the Break, those would have been time zones where Lavos flourished because she was powered by and driven by the frozen flame. So she's sort of Lavos positive. So if your overworld is overrun with Lavos spawn, then you know there's a lot of gates that you need to tend to. There's a lot of work you need to do the more Lavos spawn are running around on the map. So if they're low, then you know you're doing like a pretty good job with your never-ending game of map maintenance and party building. And you can tag their shells. That's one thing I thought would be really, really cool. But that's one, like I said, you do not want to risk going overboard. So, but this goes back to like that save style. You know how big a deal it is in Chrono Trigger if you say the wrong thing when you're trying to recruit Magus and you accidentally fight? You know, that's kind of an early example of these lasting plot points that could happen as you play through every playthrough of this game. For instance, if in your tutorial phases you actually lose to the dragon tank, then you don't recruit old Chrono, then you just can't recover from that for the length of the rest of your game, which would be however long essentially you want to play before you get some kind of ending cinematic, or you decide that you've boosted up the next game that you're going to do enough. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. This is perfect. So you have the two time gates, and you have the two parts of the map where one of them is 700 and one's 1020. So there's some awful stuff happening in 1020, right? So you go through the time gate there, and it pops you out at 700 where you find the root of the awful stuff. And then you eliminate it, thereby both portions of the map becoming enriched, and you get resources and junk. And we're moving on. That's just like one example of some kind of something. Here you've got the bonded unit mechanic. And that would influence double and triple techs. If you're bonded to a certain character, then you can both travel through time gates as one entity, but obviously you lose a certain amount of autonomy and stuff. But then you could have double techs and triple techs that are actually being performed by single and double units. Let's not risk going too far, but this is the one that I wanted to show you. So here, yeah, you just have different portions of the map represent different times of the same timeline. And then so where the time used to be in Chrono Trigger, now you have your dimensional designation. So really not that hard to combine the two. I think I'm just going to take down everything that we did tonight and say that... What's on this one? Oh, for instance, you know how you... Then it's like... because you're replaying the game a bunch, you can do a bunch of different stuff. Like, let's say, for instance, that you end up like, oh, this is another, please go watch our videos, hype up. This really explains so much about what could have happened after Chrono Trigger that led into, that basically reconciles Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross and all the loose ends and what could have happened. Anyway, I don't plan to actually plug the movie that much, but it just so happened tonight because of the way that the videos fell down. Okay, let's check this one out. Those are all good. We finished talking about why it would be Chrono Break, B-R-A-K-E instead of B-R-E-A-K. The overworld is the break, and the... I already explained it. I don't need to go over it again. So this is actually not how you would spell the title in this version of events. Chrono Break is the... I'm just being slow right now. Hold on. Oh, here it is. There you go. Not that one. We don't want that one. That's where the project started. And then the overworld became the break, B-R-E-A-K. And because Luca wants to make an invention that would stop the good times and so she could hang out with her friends forever. That's why it's AKE. I'm sorry. I'm getting tired. And that's why permadeath would be okay. Because you're playing the game a bunch of times. Don't think of it as like Chrono Trigger. Think of it more like, I don't know, kind of like a Super Mario in the way that it approaches levels, in the way that you would play through it. You can do many different things, but it's more like compartmentalized and less important that you see a particular plot through to the end. There's no one plot, so it doesn't matter really what you do. It's all about the gameplay and what you can do and getting it fixed exactly how you want it and seeing how it would play out. And that's why when you get Shala, you can do, like, a lot of characters have different gameplay mechanics, and Shala is that you can set the conditions of your new game plus so that you can really kind of do like unlock a custom mode essentially, because Shala's just like, she's the OG. I mean, she can just point at you and teleport you through time and space. So that actually gives super weight to her, you know, character, because she's just like, she's the trans-dimensional space goddess. So you can just, she's basically responsible for the custom mode in the game, where you can be warped to any location to start a new game plus under any circumstance. Some other ones include, like, for instance, when you're trying to cross the Plains of Death in 2300, if you have Robo in the car, you get extra boost. If you have a pendant, then you'll get like the rewind time thing. By the way, about the rewind time thing, I did not make that up. This is a perfect segue into why I think it's really important that we just connect dots and not try to make anything up. However, there is an interesting outlying data point that comes from the pendant. I just found it. Here it is. This gets mentioned but never pays off, so it would have to be in Chrono Trigger 2. It would have to be in Chrono Break. The pendant would rewind time a little, sending her daughter clone into a safer point in the immediate past. If you say so. But that's kind of like, that's the low-hanging fruit that we can grasp to know some starting points for what a good sequel would be like if you follow the DNA and still make it better, which is like sort of how you can delve into the collective unconscious and pull out projects that please everyone by looking at all the pieces that are already there. Someone had it in their mind to put that thing about the pendant in Chrono Cross, and maybe it was just someone having an aneurysm and it made no sense. Or maybe they were predicting the badass mechanic of part 3. And maybe if part 3 never happens, then it was just that person being goofy. But if part 3 does happen and you pay off that weird thing, then suddenly everything makes sense and it's more cohesive. And the fan base is freaking stoked.
Proximity attacks are such an interesting addition to turn-based combat. We have moves that hit enemies close to one another, hit enemies in a straight line, or hit enemies close to the player. Adding attacks that manipulate player or enemy movement would add a fun layer of strategy, strengthened by the fact that each battle's in a unique location. Having the player or enemies interact with the environment would also be cool to see. Imagine seeing a visual indication of an enemy attack, and using Chrono's Sword Strike to attack through another enemy in order to move him out of the way. Or use Isla's Strength to push an enemy into lava. Or using one of Luca's many gadgets to cause an earthquake or avalanche that drops rocks on an enemy location. Giving enemies the same kind of tools could further deepen or strategize even the most basic enemy encounters.
True dat, Ryan Beardy. Breach.